Good afternoon, everyone. Of course, it's an honor for me to be here in Geneva, the city often being symbol of peace and dialogue. But for me, of course, Geneva is more than symbol. It's one city I called home when I couldn't return back to Syria. Geneva welcomed me, gave me a sense of belonging at a time when my own country felt out of reach. This city will always hold a very special place in my heart, but the first one is Damascus, for sure. Today, I'm not here only as a Syrian Minister of Social Affairs and Labor, but as a woman and mother and Syrian who has lived through conflict, but still dares to believe that peace is possible. So when I was first invited to speak here, I remembered my mother telling me in Arabic, "Haki قليل واسمعي كتير." Speak less and listen more. And of course, this is the wisdom I shaped in my journey. It taught me that peace began not with speeches, but with dialogue. And true dialogue began with listening. I learned this in the hardest of places. During the darkest days of Syria's conflict, I sat with mothers who had lost everything, their children, their homes, their sense of safety. They didn't want speeches. They don't want anything. They wanted someone to sit with them, to share their silence, to listen and listen. That moment changed me. It showed me that dialogue is not a luxury. It's a survival. And I will never forget a refugee family I worked with, a mother, father, and 3 children. They have only a little baggage with their clothes. The father asked me a very hard question. Will we ever feel like we belong again? That question honestly broke me. Because what he was really asking, will justice, dignity, and the future ever possible for us Syrian? Rebuilding lives is not only about policies, it's about restoring sense of belonging. Dialogue is how we move from seeing each other as enemies to recognize each other's humanity. It's not about convincing others to give up. It's about building bridges strong enough to carry the weight of differences. And who built those bridges? And these bridges, and every bridges, more quietly, more passionately than women. I have seen women in refugee camps who, despite carrying unimaginable pain, burden, still up to build a school in their own tents. I have seen women in broken towns gather neighbors around meals. These are not small gestures. They are acts of survival, act of hope. This is the definition of Syrian women, by the way. Women are often described as the victims of conflict, but in my experience, they are the architect of survival. They are the first to stitch society back together. They remind us that peace is not decided only by leaders in the big room, it's built in our homes, our schools, our communities, and in the daily act of courage that often goes unseen. But telling their stories is not enough. Equality demands more. We must give women their seat they deserve at the table, where decisions, especially regarding to stopping the war, because I see all those dialogue on ground, but when it comes to the real negotiation to stop the war, there is no woman. Justice demands nothing less, because dialogue without justice is fragile, and peace without justice is temporary. So justice for me is not just about court and laws. It's about fairness, it's about dignity, it's about making sure that those who have suffered are not silenced, and that those who have caused harm are held accountable. I have seen how justice can destroy communities. But I have also seen how even a smallest act of justice, returning a stolen home, by example, acknowledging a family loss, releasing a child from detention, can heal wounds and seems impossible to close. Justice turns dialogue into trust, where we need it very much in this world. And trust turns peace into something lasting. But let us be honest here. The road ahead is not easy. Who say it's going to be easy? In any transitions, they're not going to be easy. Anywhere in the world has ever been easy in transition? Of course not. And Syrians face an ever greater challenge. We are not simply rebuilding a country from scratch. No, we are rebuilding from below that. Years of conflict have not only destroyed our cities and institutions, they have also broken the bonds that once Syrian being together. This moment requires patience, but it also requires all hands on deck. We must rebuild not only buildings and roads, but also heart and trust and communities. The work ahead is reconstructing home and infrastructure, of course, yes. But even more importantly, it's about rebuilding the social fabrics that conflict tried to tear us apart. Some of you may know that before becoming minister, I served on the Syrian opposition negotiation team. That experience taught me just how difficult dialogue can be, but also how powerful it becomes when we refuse to give up on it. For more than 20 years, I'm not this old, yani little old, I have studied negotiation and mediation, and I have taught it to my students. Every class, every training, every session reinforced the same truth. Dialogue is not about winning an argument. No, it's about building a future. So when I was appointed earlier to be a minister, the only woman, I hope I have 20 women with me, wallahi, it's very difficult to be alone. But my husband joked, and he said, between raising children and dealing with endless paperwork, you have already earned a PhD in patience. Wallahi, I need it. But I realized this was not about me. This is about every Syrian woman in tents, village, cities, and in exile, has carried her family and her community on her shoulders. Every step of my life growing up in a different city, trying to teach through Tastakal, sitting with family of the missing, every step was preparing me for this moment. And now, in this role, I see my purpose clearly. To serve with humility, to listen deeply, and to make sure that justice, equality, and women's leadership are not afterthought, but the foundation of Syria we are building today. So when I speak of dialogue, women, and justice, I'm not speaking of abstract ideas. No, I'm speaking of the tools that carried me and so many others of my beautiful sisters and colleagues through the storms of conflict. To choose dialogue is to choose hope. To empower women is to empower resilience. To uphold justice is to uphold humanity. Peace is possible not because it's easy, but because it is necessary. So, and each of us commits in our own lives to listening more deep. If every one of you and us commit for more listening deeply, to lift women higher in positions and demand justice bravely, then together we can write really new stories. One where future generations will look at us and they say, they made peace. Why? Because of they made it, we can live, and we can live in peace again. And thank you.